would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Beyond the Surface. This is a space for conversations that sit at the edges of faith, identity, power, and recovery, especially for those of us who have been shaped, stretched, or harmed by fundamental religion or high control systems. Some episodes are personal, some are reflective, some are educational or curious or quietly disruptive. All of them are grounded in lived experience and a deep respect for the complexity of leaving, questioning, and rebuilding meaning. We will be talking about religious trauma, various forms of abuse, cult dynamics, queerness, and recovery, not in neat answers, but in honest conversations. In listening to these conversations, some parts might be heavy or activating for you. Please take care of yourself while listening and feel free to pause or step away if you need to. I'm Sam, and I'm really glad that you're here with us. Welcome, Naomi. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to talk with you.
Amazing. I like to start these episodes by just a little bit of like location orientation for people. Where in the world are you at the moment?
So I am currently in Kansas City, Missouri, the United States.
Okay. And like I usually do with some US guests, how are we doing over there? Bit of a welfare
It
check.
yeah, it's I mean, it's different between me personally, but also like the whole, it seems like broad US, like everyone's sort of like reeling and trying to figure out what's going on. A lot of people who've experienced trauma and authoritarianism before, and especially high control religion, like we oscillate between we've been here before, our nervous systems get so freaked out to then like recenting, grounding, and then getting back into doing the work to try to challenge what's going on in the US. But it's very overwhelming. I mean, they're definitely taking we throw everything out there as much as we can and overwhelm everyone so they can't stop us because we're all just running around trying to figure out where to poke the hole or stop the holes.
Yeah.
But it's it's definitely not what I thought 2020, well, 2025 would have been. But I mean, granted, even before that, I can't believe that this individual got elected again. Just even hearing a lot of the rhetoric he talks about people that I'm like, oh, and so then I think that really suck in even deeper, just about a lot of the racism and sexism and xenophobia and everything that's really rooted in the US. I'm like, we really haven't done the work that we really need to do. So I hope this is really calling people to dig in more because it's embarrassing, but also it's and I think like growing up, I heard a lot about like, oh, well, Germany, like they were the bad people and like they elected Hitler and all this, and now they have to face that. And I'm just like, well, US, we have a lot of stuff in our own history. I mean,
Yes.
what we've done to the Native Americans, and then what we've done to the Black community and other ethnicities that have come over, and then now what we're doing here. I'm like, it is. I mean, even the concentration camps we had for the individual Japanese Americans, like there's just so much in our history that we have not wrestled with. So
Yeah,
hopefully we'll
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime there is like, we have the same thing here, which is like anytime there is any colonization that occurs, like we've got a shitty history that we need to deal with. And if we don't, it's just going to keep repeating in different ways. And so, yeah, I think a lot of us during COVID, sort of that 2020, 2021 era, were kind of like, oh, what a time to be alive. It can't get any worse than this. And then it kind of did. And we're kind of like, oh, shit. Okay. Like, how do we deal with this? Like, our nervous systems are not designed for this. Like, it is like, what a time to be alive kind of thing. At times, it feels all too familiar. And then absolutely ludicrous at the same time. So it's a bizarre time,
Mm.
hey? So, yes.
And I keep
Um,
telling myself we're doing it because I think of like the
yeah,
people who went through World War II. I'm like, you know what? They just went through it. Like
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's going to be fun. It doesn't mean it's
No.
going to be good. It doesn't mean, but it's like, you know what? We're gonna buckle down and
Yeah,
together we're gonna push through. But
yeah.
we
I
can do
hope
it.
so. I hope so. Yeah. Okay. I like to start these episodes with a big, broad question. And I'm actually like, you are sort of like sitting in a small sect of people that I've had on the podcast where I'm sort of coming into this episode knowing very little about your story because I kind of just randomly found you because you were posting about Wicked, and everybody who knows me knows that I'm grossly obsessed with Wicked. So, I like to start these episodes with a big, broad, vague question, which is where does your story start?
Ugh. So my story starts actually in Colorado, which is a huge hub for a lot of like James Dobson was there, like Focus on the Family was there, like it was just a huge hub. And I grew up in the independent fundamental Baptist culture.
Hmm.
And so my family, like, it was rare that I wasn't at church like 6 days a week because my school was also at the church.
Yeah.
And so it's like I had like it was my life was very insular. I come from a divorced family, which is not looked favorably upon
I was
in
about
the
to say it's
Baptist
pretty
culture.
uncommon.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was not looked out. It wasn't looked favorable. Um, I mean, between the stuff that was going on between I mean, a lot of it seemed to be a lot of like the gender norms. There was a lot of um, abuse going on,
Mm.
more of the psychological and spiritual and religious abuse, um, and financial abuse, that led to my mom saying, I can't do this. And so she ended up leaving, for her own well-being. And I mean, I reacquainted with her back when I was 18 years old, and she's doing so well right now. I'm so glad to see her thriving. Um, but after she had left, like she tried to get custody and my father just used that as a way to like gain more control. And so she ended up having to walk away from that. And so my father moved us in with his parents. And so I have three other siblings, and I'm a triplet,
Oh,
which is a
wow.
fun thing to note. Yeah.
How cool.
Um, and so I was actually raised by my paternal grandparents. And I think like they have a lot of problematic ideology. And also they created this safe haven that sort of helped me get through a lot of things. And so there's like this weird tension where it's like I have a lot of gratitude for them. And then also there's certain times where I'm like, you really caused harm to. Like, and also recognizing in their culture and more specifically with my grandmother, like I don't think she was aware of how much the IBF culture was affecting her.
Yeah.
Because she would even she would talk about like how you have to manipulate men. And she's just like, you can't outright tell men something because it's going to make them angry or upset. So she would have to maneuver around
Mm.
to make it their idea. But then also like she would almost have like a childlike response when someone told her no or she didn't hear what she was expecting. Like she would just sort of sit down and cry and pout, which makes sense growing up in that culture and just how trauma stunts some of our emotional development.
Yeah.
And so see, as I get older and reflecting back, I'm like, oh wow, there was a lot. Like she was also affected by a lot of trauma from that culture that then she just sort of passed down.
Yeah.
Um, but then growing up, my father continued the more of the similar abuse to each of us children in different ways, which is interesting. But my older sister left when she was 18 and she's 2 years older.
Mm.
And so that had a whole trauma history to it because my dad framed it as though she was rebelling and leaving. And so we didn't have a lot of communication with her.
Yeah.
And then my triplet sister ran away from home my senior year because there was a lot of just oversight. Um, and I was put in a position where it's like I needed to take care of her.
Yeah.
And so I was like monitoring what she was doing during school hours. And like it just led to a lot of conflict. And then with my brother, like there was different type of abuse. I'm not too engaged with his abuse because at the time when he went through the abuse, I was away at college.
Mm.
Um, I just hear some different stuff that goes on and off a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but what happened ended up leading to where I don't have a relationship with any of my siblings now. Like it just ended up disintegrating everything because everyone had to like center around taking care of my dad. And if they want a relationship with him, then they have to align with what he believes. If not, bad things happen. And so if you're not willing to conform, then you're scapegoated and you're the ostracized one. And so
Yeah.
I started the pattern growing up. So I've had to do a lot of healing around that. But then I went to college, which was so fascinating because I was going to go to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago to be a missionary because that was my family's legacy. And like ever since I was little, it's so, I mean, it cracks me up because I was like, I was going to be a missionary to in Australia. Like I have
Oh,
notebooks full of stuff from Australia and like just I was like gonna go there. And then like when I got put on the waiting list for Moody, which broke my heart. I was like, that's okay, I can go in later. And so then I was like, but I don't want to wait. I'll do my gen ed. So then I went to a different university. And as I was in that university, I was like, huh, I don't really want to be a missionary. Like, there's more opportunity for me because how I was raised, it's like, that's what you do. Like, well, and a part of my story I didn't share either. Like, I got saved very young. I was 5 years old, and I got saved after a church sermon that talked about hell.
yeah.
And there was gnashing of teeth and fire, and you're not going to know anyone. And so I get home and I'm petrified. And so then that sort of put me on that trajectory where I prayed the sinner's prayer. And then after that, like my siblings called me the angel because they're just like, you just always do what's expected of you. And I didn't realize how much high anxiety I had. That's like I was a rule follower because that's where I knew I was safe. And
Mm.
so then I kept hearing, like, oh, it's your job to be a missionary. It's your job. Like, either you get married or you go be a missionary. And I had a lot of history around relating to my body and just how I saw myself. And so I'm just like, marriage, just like, as much as I want to be married, I never thought that was in the cards for me. So I'm like, all right, missionary. And
Yeah.
so then I go to school, and then I mean, it was still a Christian school. It wasn't a Baptist school, but it still was very regulated. And so when I get there, it was nice because I'm like my parents aren't over here, so I can start to be curious around my identity and what it means to be an adult and on my own. And so then I ended up meeting my now husband there. And after I started dating him, like my relationship just really imploded. And it got just real, like he would drive from Denver to Kansas City, like to set up a meeting with the president of the college. Didn't tell me he was doing it until 2 hours before, and like would have this whole like intense meeting and just lots of other stuff that would go on. And it led to a place where I actually couldn't, like cognitively, I couldn't figure out what was going on. Because I'm
Mm.
like, I'm a rule follower. My father knows me. Like like I'm following God. Like, what is wrong? Like, why am I getting hurt?
Yeah.
And so that's where it really started to break things down. And I started reaching out to other people. And I just kept getting those messages of like, well, you just have to pray. Like, just trust God, follow, pray that he'll change your dad's heart. Everything will be okay. And I just kept like that didn't satisfy because I'm like, but I keep getting hurt. Things don't change. And you're telling me to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm supposed to listen to my dad who's hurting me. And I believe that I should be going a different way, but I'm supposed to silence myself. And so that really started the starting point for my deconstruction.
Mm.
I didn't really know it at the time because there really wasn't the words for that. But it's
Yeah.
like the more I did, like some therapy and getting out on my own, and then like when I graduated, I started thinking of I really want to understand why my family affected me the way they did.
Mhm.
And so then that's what led me to get into marriage and family therapy because they think of what's going on as in a systemic world. And
Yeah.
so looking at systems, I started to realize like, oh, it's like my father interacted with me this way, my family interacted this way, but it's more than just that. It's also the religion and it's the culture. And so I mean, that my master's degree was a very painful degree because it was also the time where I realized that I don't know a lot of things because my education was very skewed.
Yeah.
Because, like, I grew up believing that men have one less rib than women because God made Adam
Good
or
old Adam
Eve,
and Eve.
right? Like, everything has to be biblical. And so it's like I get there
Mm.
and then trying to like figure out how do I engage with the outside world
Mm.
and having other people respond to me in a way that I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why are you acting like I should know this? Like, this is the first time I'm hearing it. And then even exploring diversity, because nobody growing up ever talked about diversity. It's we love everyone, but hey, these people don't belong here. And it like it's just like it's weird disjointedness.
Yeah.
Um, and so there like the class was really foundational and really pushing back on me, which was, I mean, in a way it was also wounding. But also, I had a professor I could go to that really challenged me to dig into that and be like, go ask people how they see you and how they experience you. And so that really started to lead me more on that journey of, okay, like, what's going on? And so hearing other people's stories and which furthered my deconstruction. And then I went and got my doctorate. And my doctorate explored how white fundamental evangelicals in America make sense of mental illness. Because I kept growing up hearing how it's a sin, it's
Mm.
demonic possession, or it's just nothing.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to understand what was going on. And so then the more I dove into that, like it was just fascinating to start to really see more of those cultural ideologies that were really being fused within the religion. And so then that really like further propelled my deconstruction journey as well.
Yeah. In terms of like when you were younger, what like who was like you said that you got saved at age 5, which like, we love the whole like, developmentally inappropriate things being given to underdeveloped brains and ages. We love the irony of that. Um, how do you look back on getting saved at an age where you actually like can barely understand the difference between an apple and an orange, let alone like eternity and hell? And then sort of like how did that impact what your relationship with who God was to you at
Mm.
that time and sort of like into your early teens?
Yeah, well, I think like if I put myself in my 5-year-old self, it was a space where it's like I don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Like it, I mean, people will say like, well, it is a choice. Like you have to choose to believe who that Jesus is God. But then but I'm like, but it's not like you're telling me if I don't accept this, then I'm going to go to a lake of fire, not see anyone, worms, Nash, like this torment forever.
Yeah.
Okay. But then also like it growing up like with not having my mom, it
Yeah.
was also a space of like where I felt even more like I want to be with my family. And so you're telling me I can't be there.
Mm.
And so it's just like there wasn't really an option. And then now, like at my older self looking back, I'm also like, I was like, I'm sort of surprised, like for the 5-year-old to be like, you navigated a very complex
Yeah.
system to figure out how to stay safe.
Yeah.
Like, even though there was still harm occurred, it's like it definitely could have been very different, but also it's like just
Mm.
naturally navigating. So it's like that's I'm like, okay, go 5-year-old. Like, yes, there was still stuff that happened, but
Yeah.
you navigated that system.
Yeah.
But growing up, like God was presented as everything. And
Mm.
it's like he had to be your all. He had to be the lover of your soul. He had to be like you had to be married to God first. You had to if you didn't know what couldn't decide on something, you just had to pray and like God's gonna guide you. Like everything was centered around God.
Yeah.
Um and so thinking like I remember this it makes me laugh, but I love to read. Well, I love to read, but I only read Christian literature.
Yeah. I
And
mean, did
so
we all?
I had
We weren't
no
allowed to
idea,
read anything else.
right? I had no idea. Like the first time, like in
Uh,
I think college, I had to go do a book report on this fictional book. I was like, okay, any book? Okay, I'll go find something in the library. And I like read the book and I'm like, oh, this is not like what is this? But it's
Yeah.
like even like literature was like everything was just so much around
Mm.
God that it's well, and there was even like the framing too, like how I associated my father to be like God, because it was just like your father is representative of God.
Yeah.
And how you treat your father and how you interact with your father is going to be how you treat and interact with God. And so you have to make sure that you're doing well with your dad. So that way, and not only just how well your spiritual life is being, but also it will predicate what your future life is going to be with a significant other.
Yeah.
And so it was like no pressure to bond and really like align with what your father is saying.
How
Um,
was that impacted by the fact that, like, your grandfather was also there and there is like a hierarchy of male authority essentially around you? And, like, in some ways, like, is that confusing for a kid to sort of have, there's like God, but then you've supposed to have like dad as the next male authority, but also you've got grandfather there as well. And there's like an age different, like an elderly sort of like elders thing happening there. What was that like?
Well, like looking back, I don't think I really noticed
Yeah.
because my grandfather was more like in the background.
Okay.
Like he would be reading the newspaper, he'd be the one transporting us wherever, but he wasn't like the forefront. I mean, he made sure we had a good breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
Like he was always making something, but he never was like super active. Like my grandmother did more of that spiritual role, and like
Yeah.
she would make sure we do devotions, and she had did children's church for the church we were at, so we all had to participate in that. And like she was just I mean, she loved kids.
Yeah.
And I loved her passion for that. And also like my grandfather just was on the back end. But then apparently like my father felt like my grandmother was overstepping the spiritual leadership. And so then they had an interaction. And
Yeah.
so then after, I mean, it was like 1 year where we would do devotionals with grandmother before school, and then it just stopped. And we
Yeah,
didn't do
because that's a
anything.
weird gender role thing happening there because that's pretty uncommon that like she would have taken on that spiritual leadership and not the fact that there are two other men in the home that like quote unquote should be doing that.
And it's weird though too, because like
Yeah.
growing up in the culture, it's like women, it's okay for you to teach kids,
Yes.
but it's not okay to spiritually lead.
Yeah.
But somehow teaching is a spiritual leading or only in certain settings because she could do like this children's church where there is like 40, 60 kids there that she's teaching. But
Yeah.
in our home, it's like, no, that's not okay. This is my
Yeah.
father's domain. So you have to step back. And so like I mean, again, like seeing just that the trauma that my grandmother even had to go through and navigate of just like I don't know where I lie. Um, but yeah, like my grandfather was on the back end, my grandmother tried and then got pushed back by my dad. And so it just grew up more as like my dad is the leader of the house.
Yeah.
And more of my grandparents played a supporting role.
Mhm.
Like my grandmother did more of like the nurturing and the day to day, making sure we get our homework done, but and making sure we do our laundry and all that. But like my father, he worked as a truck driver for UPS. And so he was gone from like 6 in the morning till whenever his packages were delivered. And so it was mostly gone for almost 12 hours a day, if not longer around the holidays.
Yeah.
And so we really didn't see him too much. And so I was mostly raised by my grandmother um, with my father's oversight. Like it's super weird. But it's,
I mean, sometimes I'm like, if we try and make sense of things that like actually just like don't make sense, we just get sent in this like internal like cognitive spiral where we're like, yeah, but it's like this, but actually no. And then we just like go back and
Mhm.
forth and we're spinning around and play those mental gymnastics that would just like keep us trapped for a really long time. So, um, I'm curious what the ideology of the IFB was like for you in terms of like interacting with the world around you and what you thought about different people, because it's pretty conservative ideology. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's got
like,
fundamental in its name.
right?
It's kind of obvious.
There was the red flag there from the beginning,
Yeah.
but we just gravitated towards it. I mean, I understand why my family, I mean, they were raised in it, but also the men really enjoyed the power and control
Oh,
it
I'm
gave them.
sure they did.
It was great. Um, well, so looking on the outside, like it was more of a framing of other people are it's not that they're evil, but
Mm.
you almost have to be scared of them, but you need to evangelize to them, but they only want bad things for you. And you have to be
Yeah.
careful of the rotten, I mean, talk about the mental gymnastics, because it's like you
Mm.
can't be too close to them because it's like the rotten fruit and it's just going to make all the good fruit rotten. So you can't be too close, but you do need to like make sure you're planting the seeds so that way they can get saved. So then that way you can have a relationship, but best off like don't really interact with them alone. You need someone there, but you also need like it's just like a weird.
It's such
I
a
mean, I
weird
grew
analogy for me because, like, if fruit is rotten, it's not ever going to be ripe again. Like, it's just
right?
the weirdest analogy for me. I've always just been like, that makes no sense. Yeah,
I mean, but God can make anything happen.
of
The
course.
radical transformation. You're a new person. You're a new fruit now.
Oh, yoy, goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't do much interaction outside because even like when I did sports, like we had a network of other Christian schools that we would do competitions with. And so I never ha really had an experience with the outside world because even like grocery shopping, it's like you don't talk to anyone. It's like you just head down, you just get what you need and get out the door. And so
Yeah.
it's like I really don't have, even like with the neighborhood friends, like there wasn't a lot of interaction around.
Mm,
My siblings had a little more than I did because I just preferred to be in my room reading because that was safe and
yeah.
I was perfectly content there. Um, but yeah, just I mean, it was just more of the outside world. Like they're other, they're
Mm,
scary. You need to save them, but also be wary.
yeah.
Like you don't be infected.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's easy for kids to make sense of, for sure.
Right?
You mentioned early on in the conversation that you reconnected with your mum at 18. What was that like? And also, how did your dad talk about your mum while you were growing up? Like, because I imagine probably not glowingly.
That is to say the least.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of saying that she's just the egg donor. Like she really
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Oh.
Lots I mean, stories of her being involved in witchcraft and how he saved her from demonic influences, like he was the savior of this of her, and she rejected him. I mean, I got to the point where we didn't have any communication because we used to have visits with her.
Mm.
But then like my family would make it so traumatizing. Like my grandfather would come out and take pictures of her as she was getting us. And they would bring up my mom's history of trauma from her childhood and say like, oh, well, she's going to perpetrate on the kids. And
Oh.
like it just like kept leading to like such horror that my mom stepped back. And then as she stepped back, they're like, oh, see, she doesn't love you. If she
Mm.
loved you, she would be here. And so it naturally created that distance where we almost had to be loyal to my dad and separate from my mom. Um, and that was something I personally struggled with. And I
Mm.
actually have a Bible that my mom used to have when she was in college. And my sister got so mad that I had it that she actually hid it once. And I was so distraught 'cause I'm like, this is the only thing of my mom that I have. And so then later she ended up like giving it to me or giving it back. But she just like would even like berate me for like, you need to get rid of mom. Like she abandoned you. And so it's like he almost would create his own flying monkeys just with my siblings to try to get them to get me back in line, just
Yeah.
like he had me do with my sister. Um, and so when I got 18, I think some of it there was some curiosity because I was like, okay, I'm experiencing my father in a different way. So I'm
Mm.
really curious what you're like. And so I actually got reacquainted with her with my big sister. And so we had a meeting together and it was a little awkward and there was a lot of anxiety. My mom, I don't know, like I think if I had met her when I was younger, our relationship would be very different.
Yeah.
But I think like through some of the work that I've done and then like some of that deconstruction, but then even as both her and I have developed with my systemic training, I think I've been able to interact that relationship very differently.
Mm.
And so she's probably like, I mean, she's the only family member that I'm really close with. Like we
Yeah.
talk almost every week, and she's one that it's nice because we can have the camaraderie around the religious abuse
Yeah.
and even around the family dynamics, and it helps us not feel crazy.
Yeah.
But then also be able to step back and be like, okay, like now how is our life today? And how are we shifting out? Because it was just, I don't know, sometimes hearing some of the stuff that comes up, I'm just like, I went through that. We did that. Like what? And even sometimes like I'll have like just chunks of memory just gone where I'm like I don't remember a lot. And so it's like I have photos growing up just to even times where I'm like I don't even remember any of this. Like it's just
How
which
is
is a
that
little
for you?
it's unnerving, but
Yeah.
also part of me too is like I think that's a protective factor too because I
Yeah.
think like and some of it too, I'm like, I also don't know how aware I was of other things around me because I was so focused on reading or doing schoolwork or doing what I needed to do that I think I almost created my own bubble at
Mm,
the same time to help me get through it.
yeah.
Um, so I'm like, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. Sometimes I'm like, I really wish I could remember more.
Mm.
But then also I'm like, I do remember a fair chunk, so I'm also okay with that too. Like, I don't have to try to dig into that.
Did you think differently about that before you became a therapist? Because I'm hearing your response and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a therapist response. To sort of like refer to whole chunks of time not being able to be remembered as like a protective nervous system response. It's like, yeah, I mean, yes, it absolutely is. But did you like, how did you feel about it before you became a therapist?
Well, and I don't know that I really recognized it until I went
Yeah.
to school for marriage and family because I went through, I mean it's so weird because I'll even talk to my husband about like the abuse with my father. Like it feels like it was like 10, 15 years because
Mm,
it actually it and it went like when I lost my identity, I I didn't realize like how much I was like reeling.
mm,
Like I ended up turning to alcohol because I couldn't sleep. Like I was having such severe reactions and I got super angry. And fun side note, I got expelled from the college for drinking. And so
how
I know,
rebellious.
right? Well, and I got, oh, there's a lot I can say about the school. Um, but it's like there's a lot that went on. And so it's like even with all of those like like major stuff going on at that time, like that time width feels like 5, 10 years. We're looking at it, it was only like a year and a half. And I was like, whoa. And so that felt weird. And then when I went to college or to my master's and they're like, hey, let's look at your family and family of origin and like do all this where I was like, wait,
Do we have to?
what? I don't, what do you mean? Like when I was this age, I don't remember a lot about this. Like I remember going through the motions. I remember what's expected of me, but I
Mm,
can't sit down and really remember tons of memories,
yeah.
like with friends or with like sitting. I mean, I know I went to church, but I can't sit there and talk about like what the
Mm,
Sunday school classroom was like. Like it was just like, I just know I was there. Like, because I almost dissociated just to be there.
yeah.
But I mean, so yeah, I don't think I really, I think when once I realized that, it was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
What do I do with that? Like, do I need to do something with it? Like,
Yeah.
I never knew this is something someone could experience. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean there's just a chunk of unknown? Like, I can't
Yeah.
even describe the unknown because it's just like, it's just gone.
Yeah. And I think it's something like it's an interesting part of the conversation, I think, because it's something that I think so many people do experience in this space because the level of dissociation as a young person in, high control systems is huge. Like it's one of the strongest survival mechanisms to get through a fear-based system, essentially. I talk about dissociation as like a really cool part of our nervous system that kept you safe. But it's weird to think about it as an adult that there are just like whole chunks of time and, spaces that you existed in that you just don't have any memory of. And so I think even just like normalizing the heck out of that for people is really helpful.
So much so. I mean,
Yeah.
even as you were talking though, like it did bring up, like I remember times being worried that what if something really bad happened to me and I don't remember? And so it's like,
Yeah.
am I blocking even more trauma that I can't speak to or I
Yeah.
can't? And so there is like that undercurrent. And then like
Yeah.
even I think like now through a lot of the work that I've done, of just like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like my whatever was back there, like it's blocked out for a reason, and that's
Mm.
okay. Like I
Yeah.
don't have to try to dig in unless something's really telling me or coming to the conscious. But it's
Yeah.
like it's okay.
Yeah.
Like I can still be me and have my family and have my roots and still have these gaps. Both can cohabitate.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think like it's unsettling for sure. I think that's probably it's uncomfortable, it's unsettling, it's disorienting, absolutely. But to get like super therapy for a second, like also our bodies are really good at allowing us to experience what we need when we have built up a level of safety to experience it, and to not do it until that point. And so yeah, it's definitely unsettling and uncomfortable, but our bodies are really freaking cool in that way. Yeah. So, in terms of like sort of like in your young adulthood, sort of studying and like starting to like, I don't really like the word deconstruct, but deconstruct, like starting to untangle all of this. What was it like for you untangling, I guess, the family and the abusive dynamics and then the ideology, like the religious ideology and conditioning and indoctrination? Like, did those things happen simultaneously or did they happen at different paces?
I think, I mean, I'd say the family one probably started, I mean, definitely started first.
Yeah.
And then I think the cultural aspect really got caught up because of how other people were interacting with me. But then even my in-laws, like they live in Maine. And so different sides of the US.
Right.
Like Maine is like 28 hours driving from where my father is. Well, probably more than that, add 9 hours. Um, and yet they also had a similar framing. And so that got me real curious of just like how can people from such distance have these same things? And so then that's where I think it really had me dig in more into the like the religious cultural
Yeah.
aspect and then be able, which then also furthered my own individual side because it's just I'm family because I'm just like, okay, I can see more of what I don't like. And I can put names to as to why I don't like that. And
Mm.
so then it almost is like now they both sort of matched up after a period of time, and then now they're sort of sinking.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that like dad got sort of like wrapped up in that idea of like God and authority figure and like all of that dynamic. And so I am curious just from like, because obviously we talk about like having a relationship with God. And so I'm curious once you're sort of like unpacking and the unraveling of like the abuse dynamics with your father, what impact did that then have on what was your relationship with God at the time?
Well, when I went through the stuff with my father, there was actually a time where I'm like, I just can't do anything faith related.
Yeah.
Because it's just like if my father's treating me this way, then I want nothing to do with God. If my
Wow.
dad is supposed to resemble God in my life, and if God's okay with how he's treating me and isn't doing anything to change him, like I'm just supposed to submit and let this abuse happen, then I'm like, I can't do it. And so I actually walked away for a long time. And then I mean, it sounds like super weird because I'm just like, and then what brought me sort of not really back to faith, but more so engaging with the Christian
We
culture
love a
was actually,
redemption story.
right? I mean, it was actually John MacArthur. And I'm just like, and then
Ew.
now John MacArthur's horrible, but it's like it was something that like some of the Bible studies I did, I don't know if my it's because of some of like my own journey where it's like I could engage with his material a little differently, but it's that space where I really started to ask questions. Um, and then like I ended up connecting with a church that was very similar to how I grew up, but also had more like we care about people space. But then the ideology started popping up more, and I'm like, I can't do that. And then, funny enough, because we love how our nervous systems work, we go to what's familiar, not what's necessarily safe. I
Mm-hmm.
go to this other church that is even more rigid and is more like the
Oh,
church that I grew up in. And I butted heads with everyone there because they're like, Naomi, you keep asking a lot of questions, but also like I was doing a lot of work around like the critical race theory and really digging into like power dynamics because I would ask the pastor like who's holding you accountable? Like
Yeah.
you talk to all of us. So how are you held accountable for what you say? And he's like, "Oh, well, the congregation does because they sit under good teaching. And so if I say something wrong, they're going to hold me accountable." I'm like, "That's not how that works." Like,
No.
not
No.
at all. And so then I would ask like lots of questions and stuff in like the smaller groups. And so then I ended up leaving because I didn't feel welcome, but also they ushered me out in a way because they're just like they had the elder of the small group come and they told all these stories about how, oh yeah, if people come to the church and they just are not doing what we're at, like we will actually show them to the door and tell them they're not welcome back. And then they turn to me and they're like, Naomi, on your Facebook, you talk about a lot of stuff. Do you want to talk about it here? And I'm just like, I see what the writing on the wall. Like, I'm just goodbye. And so then COVID hit, and then that's when I ended up leaving, like naturally leaving. But then it was so funny because they tried to get me back, but they got tried to get me back in a way of there's American Biblical Counseling Associates in Kansas City, and they have horrific teachings
Mm.
around counseling. But they were like, Naomi, the leader of ACBC is now coming to this church. You need to come talk to this church because you're struggling with integrating psychology with your faith and all that. So you need to do that. I'm like, no, I don't.
Boy.
I
Yeah.
don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with how you're interpreting scripture and using power and all of that. And so so we ended up just distancing. And then
Yeah.
I actually haven't been back to a church, but going through that, I actually started learning more about liberation theology. And I was like, oh, this is a very different way to see the world in. And so then that really dove me into like, I don't really have like an organized religion.
Mm.
I also am like, I don't know if I know 100% if Jesus was a real figure or not. I'm like, and I also don't care. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I just want to know that I'm helping support other people here now. Like
Yeah.
the here and now matters. Like, and I'm not going to be so worried about the future because I'm just like, you know what, heaven, hell, non-existence, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. Like, it's not like I can do anything to change it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I can only impact here. So, and so that's where I really start centering I don't know about faith, but more so morals and values around of like if a certain ideology or a teaching or because I'm also like I'm not one to say any of the religions are bad or wrong. I'm like we're all trying to make sense
Yeah.
of life, and so I'm like I think we can connect with lots of different faiths and it's great. And also there's a lot of things too. I'm like, hey, may not like that, but I may like this. And that's okay because at the end I want what I believe to hopefully make me be a better person that
Mm.
helps contribute to the world around and helping those who are marginalized and oppressed and suffering and challenging those in power.
Mm.
And so it's sort of like a long journey, but even just how little steps along the way of like, you know what, I can sort of bob and weave in that faith, but also step back and I mean, I still get pressure from, well, I'll go back because even earlier, not earlier, but more so like after I left that one horrible church that also told me to leave, like I had like, I would call it my IFB voice because it's like
Mm.
it would just keep popping up in my head. And so if I said or did something, it would have like this challenge. Like I could quote any Bible verse and I could critique anything. And so I'm just like, which then it made me laugh because I'm just like any other Christian I came along to, I'm just like, I can do this so much better than you guys. Like I know how to shame myself so good. Like, guys,
Yeah.
sit back, let me do it for you.
Yeah.
Like you're missing things. And so over time that sort of has dissipated, but I've had like certain people come up and be like, hey, you need to go back to church. Why aren't you going back to church? And so even getting placed to the place where I can say, you know what, I'm content right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel the need, like the organized religion, the church, the other, like that really doesn't hold much for me.
Mm.
And that's okay. If other people want to go, that's your choice. But for me, you know what? I'm gonna have downtime because I
Yeah.
need that. And
I
it's okay.
mean, I am curious, like emotionally, what it took to get to that point because we both know that like navigating like shame and religious guilt and conditioning and all of that sort of thing, we don't just read a book and then we're like, great, all desensitized and cured and fun and good. Like it takes a lot to get to the point where we can even say, I don't know, let alone I don't care. And so what was it like for you sort of like unraveling all of the emotional attached to all of that?
Oof, I don't know that there's a simple answer to that.
Yeah.
Like it's one where I'm like, there are some days where it's like I was just bawling. Like I just couldn't put words to anything. There are other times where I just got really angry. I it it sounds super weird to me when I say it back because it's like even after getting my master's in marriage and family, and I was going into my doctor, and I from my doctor I created the power and control wheel for white evangelicalism and how the culture shapes everything and leads to coercion.
Yeah.
And even how the Bible's translate and all that. And like I was sharing it with someone, and he's like, "Man, Naomi, like." This is really cool. And also this journey for you to get here, like that had to have been brutal. And it's like when he had said that, that was like when it really hit of like, like, okay, yes, now I'm really sitting with everything of like, you know what? Like, yes, there's been a lot of hits, there's been a lot of rejection, there's been a lot of me. I mean, even now, like I still struggle at times because it's like I have like this core belief that keeps popping up that there will always be something about me that will be unacceptable, that
Yeah.
someone is always going to find something to like push me away or shame me or whatever. And so it's like I have to really moderate that because it's like that's been something that has been instilled as a child and then even growing up it's like that has just been fertilized and grown and I'm getting better at it. I
Yeah.
mean, it takes time for me to recognize when that is really speaking up. And so it's like the more I start to be aware of like, okay, now that I have a name for it, and then I start to recognize the signs of, okay,
Mm.
someone said something and I'm really reactive. Why am I really reactive right now? It's like, oh, you touched this spot back here. I don't know that you know you did that, but this is really big. And so then I started to slow it down even further and then even recognize that's a time where the IFB voice would get in because it was
Yeah.
just like trying to get me back in. And so the more I was able to recognize, okay, it's bringing its friend and it's really trying to pressure me back, which then it was also weird because then I'm like, no, you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I get to empower myself. I get to make my choices.
Yeah.
Like, what you're saying doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And it's okay for me. Like, and even sort of coming to terms, I'm like, okay, even if what you're saying is true and I'm going to go to hell because of all this stuff, I'm like, I would rather go to hell and know that I was taking care of people here. If you're
Yeah.
saying I have to hate people to go to heaven, like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And if God's gonna send me to hell for like fine. Like I
I
can't
always
control hell.
joke that if we are going to hell, it's going to be a really fucking fun time because all of the queer people are going to be down there. The music's going to be great. Like Chapel Roan will be playing, like,
Ah,
and all of the people that are like really shitty right now, if they're all the ones going to be in heaven, I don't want to be there anyway. So, like,
right?
yeah. But to get to that point is like it is a really brutal process. I think that is a really, like it's not a great word, but it's a great descriptor of what that process can feel like. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, and to sort of like therapy nerd out again for a moment. Like, I love that part of the conversation because it sort of just normalizes that those parts of us are not magically going to just disappear. We can't just exterminate them and pretend like they never exist. I love sort of like normalizing for people. We just want to turn the volume down on them. We don't want to give them the level of control that they did. We want to desensitize to the impact that they have and like all of those sorts of things. But I think just knowing that they're never just going to be magically gone. And I think that can release some of the pressure that we are somehow still not okay, or not healed, or whatever that's supposed to look like.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
interesting too, because like for even for me to almost like accept that this is a part of me,
Yeah.
because I'm like, when it gets instilled as a child, like we don't have the capacity to really challenge it. And so it's like it
Yeah.
gets so sucked into our psyche that's like there's times where I'm like, why did I react this way? Like I don't even believe that anymore. Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? Or like having those automatic responses. And so it's like I almost have to learn to accept that and just like, you
Yeah.
know what? But that doesn't mean it stops here. Like I can still keep growing. I can still keep challenging it.
Yeah.
But also that doesn't mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean that I'm not doing the work. It doesn't mean that I'm aligning with them. It's I
Yeah.
still like it's just letting me know like, okay.
Yeah.
Like there's that side, and now you get to make this choice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What has the impact been in terms of, I guess, like you mentioned that you don't have any contact with your siblings and things like that. What has that relational rupture been like for you that has not necessarily been caused by anything other than like really fundamentalist ideology, I imagine?
It's been hard. Like there's been like it's interesting because of course like with all of them it's a little different
Yeah.
because my relationships with them are different. Um I mean some of them it's been I mean ironically enough like with my triplet siblings it was a little easier to let go, but it
Oh.
was more right? I was like
Yeah, I'm
surprised.
surprised by that.
But it's like, you know what, like
Uh,
I think for me, like there was a dynamic of I saw how much they were so connected with my dad
mm,
that they were believing anything he said to them about me, that I'm just like, if you're not going to take time to get to know me, if you're not really wanting a relationship with me, then I'm
mm,
not going to invest in that. And so like it was a lot easier for that for me to let them go. My sister, my older sister and I, we developed a closer relationship after, because after she had left, like I didn't have a relationship for a long time because my dad, again, vilified because she was horrible and left and all that. That then when I got back and re in contact with her, um, it's like it was awkward. It
mm,
was something that um I mean, we've had ruptures in our relationship throughout, and so
yeah.
there's been times where we haven't talked and then we got back to talking. Um and she's someone that I'm like I see her really struggling to try to heal, to try to make sense of things.
Mm,
And then I also know like there's been a lot of trauma and a lot of her own history that's also impacting things. And so that one was a little harder for me to be like, if we're not going, like, I don't want a perfect relationship and I'm not expecting perfection, but
mm,
I'm expecting hopefully that we can be messy together and we're going to keep coming back and working through things.
yeah.
And when I got a message along the lines of like, I'm just happy where things are and I don't know if I want to move forward, I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know at least we're going to eventually get back and talking because we kept doing a dynamic where it's like, if where we had like a almost like a fake relationship where I felt like we were close. And then as soon as I shared something vulnerable or something more relating to her, then I would get like an attack, like I'm being toxic
Yeah.
and I'm being horrible. And then like then I would silence myself. And then I started to realize of like, I haven't really shared my experience of her. I haven't shared like why she can't make sense of me because I'm not being fully me with her. And I want to be able to do that. But when she was like, no. And so that rupture was more brutal. Like that was a time where I had several days where it's like it was just a breakdown crying. And I think it was almost like a healing space for me as well. Cause it's just like that was almost like the last tether to my family of origin, besides my mom, which she's my family of origin, but she's sort of outside of it because she was
Yeah.
removed for
A separate section.
like with my family of origin where it's just like and being raised in like my dad would tell me like look at who has the relationships.
Mm,
If you're not in relationships, like your mom has a relationship with no one. So she's the bad person. And
yeah.
look at all us, like I have a relationship with everyone. And then like when my sisters or whoever, like, oh, well, look, well, they have a relationship with this person. And so it's like I really had to tease out because I'm just like, I'm a horrible person. Like I'm all by myself with my mom. And what does that mean? And then you get that wonderful voice in your head that's like, Naomi, you're a therapist and you don't have a relationship with any of your family and like all the and so like having to work through that too of like well
Yeah.
why do I not have a relationship and what's going on and it's like and I'm not going to just sign up for relationships because I want to be with someone. It's like I
Mm,
want it to be healthy or I
yeah.
want it for us to be able to work on things. And so if that's not something people are willing to sign up for and one where it's also like with my father there's like this space of you do have a relationship as long as you do what we say.
Yeah,
And
it's based on
I'm
compliance.
just like, but I want this type of relationship. And they're like, well, no, that's not really what's going on. It's this. So
Mm,
you need to agree with this. And then I'm just like,
yeah.
I mean, that's where I really like the master's degree because they're just like, you get one choice. You can choose the relationship or the person. Like, if you
Yeah.
want your dad, then you have to sign up for the relationship he's saying. Or if you want a healthy relationship that may not involve your dad. I'm just like, oh, that's what's happening here. Okay. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And that's okay for me to say no to that. And it doesn't mean either one of us are bad. It's just we may be healthier people apart, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I can step back.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also really tricky, I think, because like obviously most fundamental and high control systems require you to either abandon parts or your whole self, essentially, to adopt the identity of that group. And if like as you were talking about your sister, I was like, it just sounds like, as soon as you give like real parts of yourself, that's when it like loses any sense of a relationship, and it just is like mirroring the same dynamic where you have to give up yourself to be in a relationship with someone or to stay in the group. And any sort of like self-abandonment is not like true, healthy, or safe relationships. So that makes it really hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's also something that like it hits me when it like
Mm,
when I ended up separating from that relationship because it's like with that core belief of something will always be unacceptable. I'm
yeah.
also sitting there like I keep signing up for relationships where I keep getting this message back. So it's
Mm,
like I don't have to sign up for those. Like I can also choose to take a step back as well,
yeah.
and continue my own healing in a different way. And she can be on her journey, and I wish her the best, and I want the best for her, and I love her. And also, I'm like, we can't keep doing this because we're hurting each other. And
Yeah.
that's like, it's okay
That's okay.
to
Yeah.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't
Absolutely.
have to try to make this work or try to like feel like we're just going to be in relationship as it is because it's like, no, like, we don't have to. If
Yeah.
this isn't working, I can be, because I mean, that's another thing my dad would do. He's like, I am still in relationship, but other people leave me because they're the ones that say they're gone. And so I'm just sitting there of like, is she not able to say goodbye? Like, is she really out of the relationship but doesn't want to be the one to end it? And so I'm just like, okay, like I can be that one. I can say, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, I think you mentioned earlier, you mentioned in-laws, so I'm assuming you're married.
yeah.
And I'm assuming you did the very typical like good Christian thing to do, which was that I'm assuming you also married another Christian, and you sort of mentioned like the in-laws being in the same pattern and the same dynamic. And so I'm curious what impact sort of like deconstructing and coming out of that sort of like system had on your relationship.
Relationship with who or just in
Yeah, well, I mean, with your spouse.
with myself.
Yeah.
That relationship has actually been really good. Like there has been, well, I'll start here. Um, it's interesting, like as much as my abuse from my dad, like when it happened during college when I was dating him, like
Mm,
he got to see the abuse and see how it impacted me. And like he was still in that mindset of like, oh, will you just trust your dad and all this? But then like I had him listen to a call that my dad talked to me, and then he saw how horrible my dad was towards me.
mm,
And then started like I think that sort of gave him like, oh, things aren't all as they appear. And so then he really started to see more of the control tactics my dad was doing. And so he was able, I think that helped him relate to me differently. And so then and another fun thing, my dad also would call his dad up in Maine and tell him we
Oh,
were having sex. And so therefore his dad came down to Kansas City to see if we were having sex, and it's a whole thing. And so like the fathers are talking to each
of
other to
course
try
they
to
are.
get both of us in a line, but more so me in alignment. Um and so like the story of the fathers sort of
Mm,
bob and weave.
yeah.
And so I think throughout that journey, like it also helped my husband Nate be able to sit and see like, oh, how are people interacting? And they're not really taking time to get to know me, and they're not taking time to me as Naomi,
Mm,
um, to really understand what's happening, and they're missing pieces. And so it almost created this natural space where both of us started to work through our faith at a similar time, but a little differently.
yeah.
There was one time where I really had to push back on him because his father wanted me to do counseling with him to try to work on my relationship with my dad. So I was like, this is a bad
Counseling
idea.
with your father-in-law.
Yes, because he's a pastor.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and at the time he wasn't my father-in-law, but he wanted to do counseling. And so I
That's
was like, okay,
wild.
fine. I was like, if you want me to do this, I'll do this, but it's a bad idea. And he's like, please do it. And so then as we start going, I'm just like, it's just not working because he just talked all the time.
Yeah.
And if I had a question, I couldn't ask it. And then when I could get in, he'd go on another monologue and just all, and I'm just like, this just is not working. And so I'm like, I'm done. And it was actually at a time when my husband and I were engaged. And so I broke off the engagement because I'm
Mm.
like, I want to be with someone that is going to be their own person. Like, I'm fine if you're connected with your family, but I want someone that can really think through their own things and not just do whatever their dad is saying. Like, I've lived through that. I don't want that here. And so I think that really pushed him to really also reflect on who he wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, and he did that to me too in a different way because when I got expelled from college was also a day when he broke up with me when we were
Oh.
dating and he's like, you need to find yourself. And so it's almost like we both helped each other
Yeah.
in different ways to be like, hey, we really need to figure out our core self and not just the core self, but really figure out like start that journey of who we are individually.
Mm.
And so throughout that journey within our relationship, like there's been a lot of like emotional intimacy and a lot of even cognitive intimacy because we can talk about things without having to be scared that the other person is going to reject us. And so
Yeah.
that's been like a beautiful space. Um,
I
and
love
it,
that because I feel like when we talk about deconstruction in relationships, I mean, it's not uncommon that it's happening on different timelines. And we always talk about the difficulties of it. But actually, even if you are deconstructing on different, like slightly different timelines, which let's be honest, most of us are, um, there can be really beautiful, intimate, like outcomes from that.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's been hard to see like how my husband's processing has
Yeah.
affected his relationship with his family, and like that's been hard. Um, to see and how he's still trying to journey through that. And then also there's a space where I'm like, I can step back because I did that with my family. So I don't need to do this work. I get to hold space for him as he works through this
Yeah.
in different ways. I hope his family has a different outcome than mine,
Mm.
but also they have to be the ones to do the work.
Yeah.
So I can also focus on the dumpster fire in America right now and do this while he's over in that side of things. Um,
Yeah.
which I don't know. I think that's also something that is so freeing because I think of how, like, even within the Christian faith, it was so self-focused.
Mm.
It was just so much, and like, even, I mean, some of it is the anxiety, but even how the faith teaches, like, you always have to make sure you're safe and look at other people as other, and like, you can't interact. And so now being able to, like, I can step out and like, be like, I can really look at other people and I'm not scared of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I can see how other people are affecting them and the system's affecting them and how I can actually come alongside them.
Yeah.
And how it's like, I don't know, just being able to breathe and not worry about being infected is like so nice. That I'm
Yeah.
like, I will never go back. Like the thoughts of like trying to be pulled back, I'm like, that life has nothing to offer me.
Yeah.
Like it really doesn't. And so it's been helpful, like getting to where I am now. I think like, I mean, if I think like 10, not, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, like it'd be a little different because I was
Yeah.
still sort of in the midst of it. Um, but now like there's been times with, I mean, it's been more interesting because like with my husband, there was one time where we went through a really rough patch and it was more relating to my dad
Mm.
because my dad kept wanting, like, even though we've been married now for how long now? We got married in 2012. So however many years that is.
14 years? That
I'm
was
bad with
quick
math,
math.
so
That was
of
quick
course.
math for a Sunday for me.
I was like, I don't know. I'm not
Oh.
good at this. Like even with that, it's and then even still after we were married, like my daughter was born in 2018,
Mm.
and yes, 2018. Man, time's weird. Um, and she was like, maybe even after my son was born.
Mm.
No, my son was born 2018. She was 2016. So in 2018, my dad had reached out and was still trying to like talk about sexuality and just all and was like, well, since you had premarital sex, like I think you guys need to divorce, but God doesn't like divorce. So how do you make this right before God? And just thought like it was just crazy in that meeting.
Oh.
Um, But it's like after going through that, and like my husband was still trying to like interact with my dad because it was still trying to make it okay.
Mm.
And it got to a point where there was one day where I had like this severe panic attack at night and having flashbacks, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And I'm just like, oh, everything we're doing with my dad is still hurting me. Like, I need to cut ties with him.
Yeah.
Like, even like being in different states and having him talk only through my husband, I'm like, he still has access to me. And I don't like that. Like, it needs to stop. And so that's where my husband and I mean, he was very kind and gentle in that space, but also he struggled because he was like, he didn't feel like he could let go.
Yeah.
And then also was like, he had to frame it in his brain of like, that chapter isn't necessarily closed. Like the book's still open, but we can close it over here. Like it's okay. Where I'm like, I'm done. Like I just need to be done so I
Yep.
can breathe again.
Yeah.
And so it's like that part like took a little bit for us to work through. Um, but after that, it's like I think even working through that helped us have even deeper intimacy because we could understand each other in very different ways and even bring up those ideologies of the
Mm.
patriarchal framings, or he's just like, your dad has to be in your life. Like how, and it's just like, does he? Does he though? Like,
Mm. Yeah.
I'm okay
Absolutely.
without him. I've been without him for so long.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And just conversations about normalizing that, like, protective estrangement is a very valid choice, and sort of like, and that it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that is arduous and, usually happens long after we ideally would have it happen, because we try and push for all of the reasons why we think we should be in relationship with people who are actually actively harming us on an ongoing basis. So,
And there's
yeah.
also a space too where it's hard because it's like we do
Yeah,
care for them
of
and we do
course.
love them. We do
Yeah.
want, and it's like they're not all bad, but
Mm.
it's also like that tends to keep us in these harmful relationships. And it's like
Yeah.
I can love them and not be in relationship. It's like, no, if you love them, you're gonna be talking to them and you're gonna what? And it's like, no, no, that teaching just perpetuates even more harm.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the beauty of like being able to embrace like duality and nuance post like black and white thinking, which is really nice.
oh no.
Uh, I mean, as you were talking about like how like it just doesn't serve me anymore, and that sort of thing, like how do you view like spirituality? And like, as humans we are spiritual, as beings we have an innate sense of spirituality and connection. So how do you feel about spirituality?
I find, I don't know, I really enjoy spirituality in a space because I feel like stepping out of that IBF culture
Mm.
where it's like, I mean, it's so funny because I laugh now because one of my friends would use the ideology of the blind men and the elephant and was just like, oh, well, God didn't just give us peace. Like he told us who we are. We don't have to guess about God. And now I connect to that framework very differently where I'm like, that's really how I see spirituality, where it's like we're all trying to make sense of the divine and even of life and why does suffering exist and how like and just those deeper meanings of life,
Yeah.
and even how it helps me understand culture in different ways too, where it's like I can connect with other spiritualities and other faiths and I don't have to feel threatened by them,
Yeah.
but it's a way to like almost have a deeper connection, not just with myself but with others and even with nature and with like it's a more holistic experience now
Mm.
where it's like I don't feel like I just have to go to church. That's like I can actually have good times with friends and family,
Yeah.
and that can be a spiritual experience. Like I don't have to like be so formulaic around it.
Yeah.
Um and
And
just
that
even
spirituality doesn't have to involve religion at all. Yeah.
and it yeah, and I even like I think I shared before, it's like for me, like I really try to connect around morals and values of like, is it making me a better person where I and am I limiting harm around me?
Yeah.
Like, or am I continuing to perpetuate it? And am I doing the work to learn about those ideologies that are harming others, but then also recognizing how I'm being harmed and stand up for my sacredness. So like, you know what, I don't have to keep allowing this to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's hard though, because it's like it's hard being like, I was hurt by this ideology and then I hurt others, and how do I hold that?
Yeah.
Like, and it
Yeah.
does, and even being emotionally stunted and even socially stunted and lots of other stuntedness from that culture, it's also been like really hard to recognize of like it's an ongoing process and like I'm gonna be messy. There's
Yeah.
going to be and so I can have a sense of humility around that and own that. And it's going to hurt to be like, hey, I didn't say that right. Or hey, like that was not how I wanted to represent myself in that space. And I know that hurt you. And it's like trying to really do that self-reflection even more and not have that shame on it.
Yeah.
But even how it's like that gives us space to hope, at least for me, to hopefully show up in the world every day, hopefully a little better than the one before.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm sick, I may be a hot mess. And it's just like, okay, I have to recognize it's just this other version of me, and I will go back and apologize to people after.
I think there is a period of time in every day where I could be described as a hot mess, to be fair. Thankfully, at least most of the time that's when I'm alone. But I think that's the beauty of humanity, to be fair. So I want to touch just quickly before I ask what I make the final question in all of these episodes, but I am curious what it was like for you to do your doctorate and your research and all of that around this space, particularly like integrating, I guess, what you're learning with your lived experience is probably what I'm most curious about.
Yes, well, I remember like really like being super curious about it, but then also feeling resistance because I'm also like, I
Yeah.
have a strong feeling what I'm going to find this
Yeah.
culture won't like.
Yeah.
And so, and it was even interesting trying to like recruit participants for the study. Because I would reach out to like lots of pastors and lots of other things. And like one of them actually had me on a thread with other pastors they were talking with. And they were just like, oh, well, she wants to do this. And I don't think we want to do that. And just like, oh, well, she just is trying to make us look bad and just all this stuff. And like, and it's just like really recognizing just how, I don't know, that culture is so focused on protection and staying the same and
Yeah.
also feeling like other people are vilifying them and not recognizing how their actions affect other people and other people's natural responses to what they're saying that isn't good
Yeah.
or
Protect
healthy
the
or
system, not the people.
right.
Yeah.
And so like there was a part of me that's like, if I go here, I feel like it's and even getting other people tell me, if you do this, you're going to lose your faith. Like it's going to be horrible. Like you can't do that. And then even coming to terms of like, you know what, if I do lose my faith because of this, then I feel like it needs to be lost.
Yeah.
Like that I shouldn't have to stay in a place because the more I learn about it, the more I'm gonna walk away. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And then even holding space, like, and almost a sense of empowerment of also like, I can figure out like how the abuse that happened to me, like, how does it make sense?
Mm.
And so it like helped me untether a lot of that more, and then even recognize just how, like, around a lot of evangelical cultures in America, there's a lot, especially fundamental ones, it's so centered around the Bible.
Yeah.
And it's like the Bible is the word of God. It is like every word of God, like it's exactly how he intended it. And so stepping back and recognizing all the cultural nuances and the language and the translating and the biases that go into the translating and then even the interpretation, just how complex that is to be like, hey, like when we step back, this really isn't like we can't sit here and say this is exactly what God wants us to do because there's human interaction with it. And that was also scary because there's like that sense of because I was taught, especially in apologetics class, that the first thing people do when they try to like challenge Christianity is go after the Bible.
Yeah,
And
of
so you have to
course.
protect the Bible. And so it's like I feel like I'm like attacking the Bible when I'm questioning, and it's like I'm actually not attacking the Bible. I'm seeking to understand.
Yeah.
And also the more I understand, the more I can be like, hey, this doesn't seem right. And
Yeah, I mean,
also,
the irony is that so many people start to deconstruct when they go to Bible college or theological college.
oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so it's the irony of that is palpable that the more curious they get about the Bible, usually with an intent to learn and to grow and to understand, actually can be the moment where all of it unravels.
Right. And I don't know. And that's the part that I feel like is really crazy to me because
Yeah.
I'm just like growing up of hearing like, well, you need the meat. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need milk. Like, you need to grow and be mature. And then when people are really developing that maturity, that system gets threatened. And then they're just telling you it's all bad. But then it's like, really, if for a lot of us, it's like if we're really trying to seek to understand the heart of God and the divine, then we should be able to do that. And
Yeah.
if certain things need to get thrown out or adjusted, or if we need to recognize human interaction, then we need to acknowledge that
Yeah.
and not just keep centering what, I don't know, I forgot the word. Certainty, I guess is the word, that we're
Yeah.
absolutely certain that this is. It's like we can hold to a lot of I don't know too,
Yeah.
but it is very scary to hold the I don't know.
It is. I remember the first time I thought and said the words like I don't know out loud, and it didn't come with like absolute horror and panic attached to it. And it's like because it does for a really long time. Like it, and I mean, and that's part of the reason why I started this podcast in the first place, like going on like this is the third year now, which is wild to me. But because like you think that you are the only person panicking around like words or like experiences or phrases, but actually we're all panicking and it's all just really hard and really messy. And hearing other people, talk about how hard and messy it is just helps it be less hard and at least less alone in it all.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
And I love like podcasts like this too, because I think it's a way, not only does it help normalize, it also, I think, can help us, because often I find like we can very human recreate the structures we're leaving
yeah,
and not really challenge those frameworks. And so the
yep,
more we can engage with honest dialogue in people's journeys, the
yep,
more it can also give us space to really reflect on like, are we repeating things, or is it like, oh, well, I'm doing that, like, and so I don't know, it's just a very, especially how I grew up. It's just like you don't talk to people different than you, to be like, hey, we have similarities and also there's a lot of difference.
yeah,
And also we can do the journey together and normalize things and also continue to grow together.
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of listeners, I like to finish with some encouragement for people. So, what would you say to someone who has just stepped out or left or been kicked out of a fundamentalist system?
Ooh, that's such a big one. There's so much. And
Mm.
also lots of things just run away too at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think for me, I like to let people know to be kind and gentle with yourself.
Mm.
Because I think lots of times we can shame ourselves for having natural responses, or even when those certain Christian voices or control religion voices get stuck in our brain, that it's like really taking that moment to be like, you know what, we are human and things did impact us, and we get to do this journey and it's scary, but
Yeah.
also you don't have to do it alone. And also over time, I mean, I don't know. I want to say over time it gets better, but also I know sometimes it gets hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's weird where it's like we can breathe again, but
Mm.
also we can lose relationships, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
It gets
And also,
different. It gets different
yes,
over time. It changes.
yep,
Yeah.
it evolves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's helpful because, like, I think it's easy to think it's going to be like this forever and it's going to stay the same. And it might get hard. It might get harder in different points, but it doesn't stay the same very rarely.
Oh yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think even times where things got hard for me, like it was, I felt myself like almost wanting to just stop because it felt too
Mm.
hard. But
Yeah.
then also that space of like the more I could push through, the more I worked through, the more I questioned, the more I held on to like what is driving me. And a lot of it is I deserve to be treated with respect. I deserve to have space in the room.
Mm.
Like I deserve to have my voice and my agency and autonomy. And the more I held on to that, it helped me walk through that to where it's like, even though it's different, I can also have a different life now where I things are so much better than
Yeah.
they were in the past. It doesn't mean they're perfect, but it's like they are definitely so much better
Yeah.
than that life where it's like I would not like, as much as I don't like pain. I mean, I'm one where it's like if I think of pain, I'm gonna run away from it.
Yeah.
But also I'm like, I wouldn't give up that pain for the world because of where I am today.
Mm.
But it sucked and I don't like it. But it is definitely something I'm like, I will take it if it means I can be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the like the just the very human way that we sort of just like ended that of like, yeah, it sucks, but like it's like we're okay still. Like it sucks and yet we're still okay. And just yeah, that reminder to people that like they deserve to be respected, they deserve to have autonomy and agency is They're really integral reminders, I think, throughout this process. So thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me. I've loved talking with you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Surface. If this episode resonated, challenged you, or named something you've struggled to put words to, I'm really glad you found your way here. You'll find ways to connect, learn more, and explore further in the show notes. As always, you are good, you have always been good, and your story matters always.